Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Glad to see you here or virtually encounter with you. Today, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome, more specific to the millennial generation. And although it is something that happens to all generations, I can't really speak from experience for those generations. I can speak to the research that's out there. But for the sake of this video today, I want to talk a little bit about what they refer to as the checkbox generation, which is millennials. It's exactly how it sounds. We were all raised in this society or world thinking if we check all the boxes, we should get all the things we want in life, right? And when that didn't work out, we felt like it was a problem with us. We said, well, we have the education, we have the experience, we've done the things, we checked the boxes, we did everything we need to do. But at the end of the day, you still didn't have the results that you were expecting. So we'll talk a little bit about that, what that checkbox mentality is, what the reality check was for a lot of us, and then just the rise of imposter syndrome, and a couple tips to improve your experience in this world, in this crazy society, so that way we can feel a bit more confident in what we do know, and then we can navigate some of the things we don't know and continually grow every day. With some of those things in mind, let's go back to when we were little wee lads and lassies, that we were raised in this world where ticking off every box meant that you would get what you wanted in life. We were told, hey, get those good grades, participate in all those activities, graduate from a great college, or at least go to college, right? Graduate would be the second piece of that. Taking part in these bigger experiences and contributing to this hopeful future of a high paying job or a big career, so on. There was this idea that there is like a linear path that everyone needed to follow or some universal formula for a prosperous and fulfilling life. A lot of our parents, it's not really their fault. They grew up in a time where that was realistic. The American dream was still very much so alive. Not that it isn't today, but it's hanging in there, hanging on by a thread, we'll say. So a lot of parents and educators within our society, they reinforce these ideas and these notions that you have to meet these milestones to be valuable in society. And while some of those things can be true, it's not the truth for everybody. So the underlying message for us was very clear that if you follow these steps, success is not just probable, it's guaranteed. You do the right things. You go to college, you go do an internship, you get a job. Life is easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You can retire early. You can have the house. You can have the second house in Florida, whatever your family or whatever they were doing that seemed so realistic. But they created this generation of individuals who believe that hard work and adherence to these steps would inevitably lead to a desired outcome, which sounds pretty solid on paper, right? You know, you check the boxes, you do the things, straightforward. What could go wrong? The reality check we faced when we became adults was wild. We were hit with the Great Recession, staggering student loan debt that was just on the rise because we did exactly what they said, check all the boxes, get those student loans. There were stagnant wages. There was this increasingly volatile job market, and it just shattered this illusion of how the checkbox approach or mentality would work. And so, as these things kept happening to us, it seemed almost like it was this foolproof experience, but now it's actually inadequate and entirely irrelevant in the way that we could actually navigate the modern world. A lot of us found ourselves overly educated, being turned down for opportunities because we were overly qualified. That one always blows my mind. We were trying to find jobs that matched our qualifications and our aspirations and our skills because that's what we were told to do. And home ownership, which was once kind of a given, became this elusive goal that most of us felt it was impossible to achieve. And we were on this prescribed path to success, but it was no longer viable. And there was this widespread disillusionment, basically. With that, the gap between our expectations and reality fueled imposter syndrome among most of us. We were told that we did all the right things, everything should line up, and it's just not happening. So we look inward and think, am I the problem? Is it because of me? I did all the right things and it's just not happening for me. Maybe I'm not as smart as I thought. Maybe I'm not as skilled as I perceive myself to be. Maybe I'm not as competent in these things that I love and I had focused on so much to the point where I can't get a job. So when that path failed to lead us to those promised outcomes, we started doubting our abilities and our worth. And we felt like we weren't measuring up. Like we're just not measuring up to what society expected of us, no matter how much effort we put in, no matter the number of achievements, no matter how many certificates that you have that say, hey, I was on the dean's list, I did all the right things. It just became pervasive. And social media does not help at all. It's really exacerbated the issue because there's this constant comparison loop that happens with people. And we're highlighting our peers. We're also highlighting ourselves too. But our peers' successes are just amplified. They're magnified on social media. So it can have people feeling like we're the only ones struggling or that they're the only ones going through these experiences. And it can really omit the hard work and the setbacks that are happening behind the scenes for a lot of these individuals. So I'll jump into a few things that we can do to help ourselves and others navigate this new landscape.
I just wanted to plug a foundation that means a lot to me. It's called the Battle Buddy Foundation. It was founded by combat veterans. It is a nonprofit organization. They're dedicated to helping combat veterans transition back to civilian life while living with the effects of PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. It's a fantastic foundation. Please take a look at it. Donate if possible. Volunteer where you can. It goes to a great cause. Honestly, anything is appreciated. Even if you're just spreading the word, you never know who it may be impacting close to you.
To alleviate these feelings and navigate this growing, changing, new landscape, we have to look at our successes a bit differently. We need to redefine what success means. It's always evolving. It shouldn't really be confined to societal expectations because we all know everyone's on their own journey. We have to really identify the values and goals that we have and really just understand that they may change over time and that's okay. We need to shift in our perspective individually and societally to make sure that people are accomplishing what's right for them and not what they think is right for the bigger picture of society all the time. And as someone who loves the sciences and I work in them, I find that it's very important for me to be contributing to them all the time. And that can be very exhausting because there are just some things I cannot solution. They're just much bigger than me. And while I'm a piece of a bigger puzzle, taking on some of those larger challenges that may not be realistic can be extremely exhausting and also lead to burnout. The next one is to embrace failure. Stay resilient, meaning that failure is just a natural part of growth and you learn the most from your failures. So it's not a reflection of yourself and it's not saying you're inadequate if you fail. The willingness to fail is probably one of the greatest strengths you can have. And building resilience involves a lot of learning from those setbacks and continuing to move forward despite those experiences. As a society, we do need to do a better job of fostering open conversations. We need to create spaces for people to be open and honest about their struggles and setbacks instead of seeing them as this nuanced thing, this outlier that rarely happens. We need to normalize the expectations that we have for one another and for ourselves. It's important to share stories where people have struggled or where maybe you have experienced some kind of trial or tribulation because sharing those stories of failure and the recovery that accompanied it can really reduce those feelings of isolation that we all have. And imposter syndrome is very dependent on that exact thing. That feeling of isolation, of being different, of being the outlier, of being the one that's struggling and being the one that's different. We really have to have those conversations so people will understand that they are not alone in this. I will always push the importance of leveraging mental health related resources and tools specific to imposter syndrome because it's slowly being talked about more and more. There are a lot of support groups out there and resources that exist. There are also therapists who specialize in imposter syndrome. and helping people cope with some of those feelings they've had over time. You can get life coaching, you can get career coaching. Definitely look into peer support groups, find people in your network, in your field of study, and just build that community around you, almost a tribal community in a sense of it's not just a network, but people who have dedicated places in your life that have roles that contribute to greater success of the whole community. So I highly recommend looking into some of those. LinkedIn is a great place for that. You can also leverage meetup.com and you can look into things like not just hobbies, but very specific subsets of interests. And I think that that's a great place to start so you can feel as though you're not the only one that's interested in something or the only one struggling in something. So, my favorite one, which isn't surprising because I work in learning and development, is encouraging lifelong learning. We are never done learning, and the moment you decide that you are done learning or that you can't learn anymore or that you're this like lost cause, that's when the real struggle hits. Because you have to be open to adapting to our world. It changes so frequently and it always has. You need to continually learn and improve your skills, no matter how young, how old, how experienced or educated you are. You need to embrace this mindset that you are capable of more. You should always be learning. And there are lots of studies out there that can attest to the importance of continuous learning well into adulthood, into, old age and how it contributes to the mind. And continuous learning actually leads to longer life expectancy as well. It keeps the brain sharp, it keeps people happier, and we don't want you to feel isolated, right? So, the important thing in the world of learning is that we're there to help alleviate that pressure that people have of needing to have all those answers immediately. In my field, specifically in learning and development, we take the time to really evaluate what people need and we address those gaps on an individual level. Do the same thing for yourself. Sit down and think, where am I struggling? What can I do to solution that one area instead of trying to solution all of the areas all at once? So take your time with it and look to opportunities to learn. Put yourself out of your comfort zone sometimes, and you will feel those imposter syndrome feelings, but learning how to cope with them is important. And one of the best ways that I have found dealing with imposter syndrome is to put myself in scenarios I've never been in, and then I can feel those feelings, overcome them, achieve something new, develop a new skill set, and then come back and try it again. And just documenting my feelings and how I responded differently to that situation after I had learned some new skills. So, just some thoughts on the ways that you can improve that experience that you're having with imposter syndrome. So, just to wrap all of this up, I know that imposter syndrome is a huge challenge for all age groups. I'm speaking more from personal experience as a millennial, but I've also done research for other generations as well. And I think that this unrealistic expectation to check all these boxes to look a certain way or be a certain way in our society is a huge contributing factor to imposter syndrome. Sometimes people will refer to it as imposter phenomenon, so just letting you know in case you're going to research that later. But we have to really redefine our success. We have to embrace failure. We need to foster those open discussions and conversations. Support mental health. That is like a huge one for almost everything that's happening in our society. The root cause is almost always mental health, right? And we need to encourage lifelong learning and not see failure as a threat, but as an opportunity to grow ourselves. So, just want to leave you all with that. I was having some thoughts this morning. I recently published an article on LinkedIn that had to do with imposter syndrome and the millennial experience, that checkbox generation. I thought I would share with you all. So, I'd love to get your thoughts. I hope you all are doing well and enjoy the rest of your week.